All right, Isaiah's gonna speak. Can you guys just let me know if you can hear him?
Can, yeah.
Oh, hold on, let me fix the sound so they can hear. It's the all right, say one more thing for me, guys.
Hi. Hi.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it. Our sound is coming through our computer and not through our projector. Give me 1 second.
I feel like I've been doing this for a year and a half now, and I'm still not better at it. Yeah.
No, it's Zoom. Zoom is like, it's tricky. Sometimes Zoom wants to play through the projector. Sometimes Zoom's like, forget your projector. We're gonna do the TV. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started because I will just turn it up so you guys can hear it and I'll adjust the sound, but I want to have it finished before you guys leave. All right, you ready, Isaiah?
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the STEM Series Part 3 presented by the KCP Chemistry Club. We are grateful for every student, teacher, speaker, and community member who is in attendance today. Before we get started, I would like to provide some information about the Chemistry Club and the speaker series. I am Isaiah Teray, the 21 through 22 president of the KCP Chem Club, and this is my second year being a member. The thing I enjoy most about Chemistry Club is honestly the experiments that we do. I would like to formally thank you for coming and hope you enjoy your panel. Here is Ms. Hawkins, our advisor, to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Isaiah. All right, you can go back to class. Everybody give Isaiah a clap. Thank you, Isaiah. All right, so to our panelists, this is my 4th period class. There are 30 to 31 of them. We're a packed house every day. You see a small corner, but there's a whole classroom full of students. To students, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our panelists, but before we get there, let me tell you a little bit about Chem Club. We meet every Monday and Wednesday. Isaiah is our president. He is our one of our main juniors, honestly, because he's been in it since last year. I am the advisor. You can follow us on Instagram if you want to know more info or just be involved with our labs without coming to club. And then also we have an outdoor STEM fair that will be Thursday, December 16th during lunch outside at the little courtyard overhang area. Our STEM series is really a chance for us to reach out to the community around KCP, around DC, around really America, if we ever get that far, just to provide you some exposure on what you can do in science. Y'all might not want to be chemists. You hear me talk about chemistry all day, every day, and there's more to science than what I do in class or what we do in lab. So let me introduce you speakers. All right, our first speaker, Rachel Starr is a AAAS Legislative Fellow. She works in the office of Senator John Hickenlooper. She was born and raised in northern New Jersey. She attended high school at the Bergen County Academies, where she discovered her love for chemistry. She then went on to major in chemistry at Barnard College, the women's undergraduate school at Columbia University. She subsequently pursued her PhD in materials chemistry across the street at Columbia University. During graduate school, Rachel also had the opportunity to dabble in other non-academic areas such as venture capital, technology transfer, science policy in NYC, and a climate nonprofit. After living in New York City for 9 years, she finally moved to Washington, D.C. to begin her fellowship program. She currently works on the climate and energy portfolio in the Hickenlooper office and is passionate about applying her scientific background to inform evidence.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry, Siri. To perform her inform evidence-based policy. In her free time, she enjoys indoor rock climbing, which I'm trying to get into, exploring the food scenes, and playing with her dog, who you can see in the photo. Can everybody clap it up for Rachel? All right, our second panelist is Brandon. He received his PhD in chemistry this year, and he is now working in the office of Senator Chris Coons on energy and environmental policy. Brandon was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and he attended the University of Hawaii for undergrad. This is where he fostered his interest in fighting climate change with innovative technology. Can y'all give it up for Brandon? Yeah, Brandon. You want to go to Honolulu? All right, we're gonna say all right, next is it Leela or Layla?
Leela, you got it.
All right, Leela Dumont is an organometallic chemist, which means she does a lot of work. I'm just gonna let y'all know. Her BA in chemistry from Bard College. She earned her PhD in chemistry from the University of Maryland right up the street. As an American Chemical Society member since 2011, Leela co-led the Bard undergraduate student chapter and volunteered as a graduate student. With her local ACS section, the Chemical Society of Washington, by the way, all the snacks you got at the beginning of the year, it came from ACS, so big up. She was also awarded the U.S. Department of Education Graduate Assistance in Areas of National Need Fellowship while at University of Maryland. She currently sits on the board of managers, and she's worked in chemistry education, scientific outreach. She is dedicated to fostering engagement between scientists and the public. And she grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. In her spare time, she enjoys birding, reading science fiction, and playing the bassoon. Give it up for Leela. All right, we got two more. Amanda Beerhawk Glickstein. Did I say it right?
You did.
A AAA fellow working in the Senator Gillibrand's office in the areas of health and healthcare. So already we've heard about climate change, healthcare, all the stuff you can do with science. She is sponsored by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Amanda is an applied nutrition scientist and a registered dietitian. So all these Takis and hot Cheetos, she's gonna make you throw away. Experience working across sectors. Her research and her professional interests are science communication, consumer. Oh, sorry, my bad. Consumer behavior and health outcomes. She is motivated to understand how things work with the goal to help improve public health, and quality of life. She earned her PhD in nutritional sciences from Rutgers. Before then, she got a master's from Florida International. And before then, she got a bachelor's in psychology from SUNY Albany. Give it up for Amanda. All right, and last but not least, Clarissa Bargava.
Yeah, Bargava.
Bargava, all right. She earned a PhD in material science and engineering at the University of California, Berkeley, where she explored 2D materials for application in ultra-thin, low-power electronics and optoelectronics, like your cell phones, all right? Alongside her lab research, Clarissa also worked in science communication at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. She wrote press releases and communications for the Department of Energy, fellow scientists, and the general public. As a Congressional Science and Engineering Fellow, Clarissa tackles issues related to energy and the environment, as well as national lab policy for U.S. Senator Ben Ray Buwan. Can I get a hand clap for our last panelist? All right, so we have 4 questions. Sorry, Linda, I didn't print them, but you can read them off the screen. So we have 4 questions that we, at every series, we ask the speakers the same questions so that you get different answers for stuff that we think might help you out a little bit. I am going to introduce London Gray. She is the vice president of the Chem Club for this year. She is a sophomore. She is also the sophomore with the highest GPA at this moment. So everybody give her a hand clap because she's been doing her work. All right. All right. You can read both at the same time. All right, London's gonna read our first question, and then we're just gonna go on mute, and you guys can answer in whatever order you guys are ready. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon. At the end of high school, what was your dream career, and are you in that career now?
Randy, you want to start?
Oh my goodness. So coming out of high school, I think that I honestly really wanted to be a doctor, and not the kind of fake doctor that I am right now. And I got to college and I pursued a degree in chemistry because I was interested in being a doctor, really. That's not the right decision. If you want to be a doctor, you should absolutely be a bio major, but that's fine. And I got into a lot of the chemistry classes and I really, really enjoyed chemistry. And I think that it's a subject that kind of really resonated with me in high school and like really clicked. And I think that being able to get to college and do research and kind of learn about chemistry at a high level was really appealing. So I ended up getting a PhD in chemistry. And I'm clearly not kind of using that in the way that I think a lot of PhD chemists use that, in spite of the fact that 3 of them are sitting here right now. But I think that throughout my time in grad school, I found it really important to try and make an impact with the science that I was doing. And a lot of times, kind of when you're doing academic science, it doesn't really feel like that all the time. So I think that I started looking for other avenues to pursue and use my chemistry background. And I found kind of different avenues in the policy space, being able to use chemistry to tackle things like environmental issues and climate issues. And I think that a lot of those really resonated with me. I think it felt very impactful. So like the other 4 of us here, we applied for kind of a series of these congressional fellowships. And I think that the work that I'm doing now, I feel really good about. I think that being able to work in the climate and energy space and be able to like provide informed opinions as a scientist, I think has been really rewarding, and hopefully beneficial to someone down the road.
I'll share that. So I went to a performing arts high school where I played the bassoon and sang and did ballet. So I didn't know what I was going to do when I went to college. I wasn't imagining chemistry, but I got to college and I was really taken by it. So I'm really envious of some of you who actually have an understanding already that maybe you're interested in chemistry. Studied for undergraduate, graduate school, but realized that to me, the more important thing, and I think this is because I had a background in the arts, was like, how do we use these things to make people's lives better? And to me, that answer was policy. So when I was your age, I would never have imagined that I would A, get a PhD in chemistry and B, now be working on Capitol Hill. But it's an exciting thing. And I think you can come from a lot of different backgrounds and go a lot of different places.
So for myself, to be perfectly honest with you, I think my parents were happy that I even graduated high school. I was not an exemplary student. I enjoyed playing soccer and I was the captain of the soccer team. But scholastically, like I just wasn't interested or engaged. And so when I went to college, I didn't really have like something in mind that I was going to do. But the way I approached it was I tried taking courses in almost every discipline to see like what really sparked my interest. For myself, it was really like psychology and making sure, people were in a good mental space to kind of approach their own goals in their lives. And to be honest with you, I didn't even really look into the sciences, like the basic sciences, until after I graduated undergrad and then started taking some courses at a community college to see if I could even do it. So that's kind of like the long-winded way to say, no, I'm not in that career now. But I think it's a really nice background to have, to understand what it's like to work with people and to understand the different backgrounds and experiences that people have had, and how they might use science in their lives. So.
At the end of high school, I didn't necessarily have a dream career. I think I was pretty undecided, aside from the fact that I knew I really liked science. And to let you all in on a little secret, I still don't know what I want my career to be. But everyone is trying to convince me that that's okay, so that's what we're telling ourselves. I think this job is the dream job that I didn't know I had. It's been a really amazing experience, and echoing what everybody else has said, like I have a degree in chemistry. I love chemistry. I'm a scientist at heart, but I really wanted to figure out other ways to make chemistry applicable to people's lives and useful in the world, aside from just, lab research and bench research. And this has been a really amazing opportunity to do that. So I'm hoping that after this job, which in case all of you don't know, this fellowship only lasts for 1 year. Some people stay on the Hill, some people move around. So I think after this year, we'll see what's in store for me, but I hope to still stay at the intersection of science and policy.
For me, probably at the end of high school, I didn't have a job in mind, more like an objective. And I knew I wanted to work on something to help, avoid the worst effects of climate change. And I wanted to work on energy. So renewable energy, clean energy. And I pretty much Googled like, which is the field that you have to study in order to make solar panels. And so that's how I landed on material science. And so I studied that through my undergrad and my PhD. And I always kind of thought that I would stay in a research lab, maybe be a professor and help make new technologies in say, solar. But it turns out that we have really good solar technology already. And the big problem is actually deploying it, which is a policy problem. So we need to make it easier and more affordable to get more like solar energy, wind energy, transmission, our electrical grid, all these problems. There's a huge need for really good policy in federal, state, local levels. So that's kind of how I ended up in working in the Senate. And after this fellowship, I'm also hoping to stay in like this convergence of science and policy. So I'm still kind of on the same mission that I was at the end of high school, but it looks differently than I had imagined at the time. But I'm really glad that I ended up here.
If I can quickly add just like one more point to that, I really want to reinforce the point that Rachel made about like, it's really okay not to know what you want to do. Because like, I think that at every stage of my life, I didn't really know what I want to do. And I still don't know what I want to do now. And like, there are people who have very, very successful careers and they do a whole bunch of different things without really settling on one career that like is the perfect career. And I think it's totally fine to do that because I think that there's lots of opportunities out there. There's lots of really interesting things you can do, including in the sciences. And that doesn't all necessitate that you have some like deep-seated sense for exactly what you want to do with your life. So I just wanted to reinforce that because I remember in high school, everyone was just like, oh, what are you going to do with your life? What are you doing next? And it's just like, I think it's fine not to know.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what London just said is something that I ask all the time is one, if you're going to college, they don't know. And then two, if you're going, what are you studying? And the mindset is to try and get them to understand is that no matter how old you get or how confident, you will never really know what you're going to do when you get older. So there's different things. Someone mentioned materials technology and it reminded me. So even after undergrad, I went to get my PhD. And the people who I was working with, in Harry Potter, when he threw the cloak on him and he went invisible, they were making those for soda bottles. So they were trying to make them small and then get bigger. Or when I worked on solar panels, we were trying to make them last longer versus like trying to create them. So there are so many different things you can do in science in general, you know what I'm saying? So keep figuring out, keep trying. All right, ready for the next question?
Let me see all of them.
Yeah, or you can leave out the parentheses.
Oh, okay. How did you get to where you are today and describe your journey?
Oh,
I think a lot of us addressed this a little bit in the last question, but basically I took the most straightforward path. I went from high school to undergrad, 4-year degree, and then straight to graduate school. So that's like, I didn't take any time to go into industry other than like summer internships. So that's like probably the most vanilla pathway and then I came here straight out of my PhD. So that's, I'll pass it off because I know others have mixed experiences.
I had a similar pathway of, high school to undergrad to grad school to the Senate all in a row. I think my my inner journey happened mostly at the end of grad school. I was sort of frustrated with the land of academia, and I just knew that it wasn't for me personally. And I had to do some intense soul searching to figure out where exactly I wanted to go next. And that involved a lot of introspection as well as starting a journey of networking, which as you continue on in your education and your career paths, everybody will tell you the best advice is to network. It sounds really vague, but it's true. So maybe you're hearing it here first, or maybe you've heard that before, I don't know. But talk to as many people as you can. You're already doing the right thing by hosting these kinds of panels. And by speaking to others, I understood that there was, a career path to be had at the intersection of science and policy. And that sounded most interesting to me. And then similar to what Clarissa had done in her past, I Googled jobs and came across this fellowship. So very lucky to be here.
I think unfortunately you've put the three people who took the straightest path in a row. So I also came from high school, went to undergrad, went to grad school, and then took this position. The one piece of that I do want to bring up, and I think it's one that I didn't really fully understand, is that between kind of undergrad and graduate school, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked academic science at the time. I liked doing research, and I wanted to continue doing that, but like I had always had this impression that like graduate school was really expensive, and it was like really a hard thing to afford and to get through. And for a little bit of background, I stayed home for college. I went to the University of Hawaii, and that was mostly a financial decision. I mean, I don't have to tell you all, college is super expensive. It's a huge investment. But the one thing that I learned while in undergrad is that a lot of science graduate programs, and if that's something you're interested in doing, the school will pay for you to go there. So I think that pretty much any degree in the science, if you're getting a PhD, they'll pay for your tuition to go there, and then they'll pay you money as though it's like an actual job, essentially. And that really lowers the barrier to, I think, well, one, going to school, getting an education, getting a PhD, but it also lowers the barrier to like trying new things and getting new experiences. I like the first time that I lived anywhere other than in Hawaii was when I went to graduate school, and I think that provided like an easy way for me to explore a new place, to get to go to a new city, a new part of the country, without the stress of like, oh my gosh, I'm spending $80,000 a year to go to graduate school, and I'm really stressed out about all this money and stuff. So I think that in that sense, graduate school was a really great experience. It's providing me the opportunity to go out, explore, get an education, and it opened up a whole bunch of doors afterwards. So
I'm an atypical student, I guess you could say. After I graduated, I moved in with one of my best girlfriends and was a deli delivery driver for a while. And then I went into the Peace Corps in West Africa and had an experience there as a community health and AIDS prevention volunteer. I returned home after that, still not knowing what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And gosh, I think I moved to New York and I worked as an executive assistant for someone. And the person happened to have like a degenerative like brain kind of tumor actually. And I noticed how his physical abilities were kind of reducing. And so it really sparked my interest in science. And so I started going back to school, taking night classes at a community college. And what else did I do? I think just in general, rather than going through it like sequentially, I just kept on trying things that seemed interesting and that would get me money. Just to jump off of what Brandon said in terms of like the cost of school and things like that, I went to school in New York and Florida and New Jersey, and all three of those schools were state schools, and I had an excellent education. What I will say is that I didn't have a program that was necessarily paid for, but you can become like an in-state resident and get in-state tuition, and that reduces the cost a lot. And then on top of that, you can become like a research assistant and work for the university itself, and then have your school like paid for. So there are lots of different ways that you can go about it to make it a more affordable and achievable goal for yourself without like so much debt. But yeah, so I guess after that, I went into a master's program in dietetics and nutrition in South Florida. And I fell in love with research. I just wanted to understand why people chose or made decisions, why people made decisions for their own health, and what motivated them. And so I learned that the environment really influences people's access and their affordability of what they can eat and how they can live and how that impacts their health and their overall quality of life. So I decided to move on for my PhD, and that's when I went to Rutgers. And so through each one of those experiences, I made sure to get in-state tuition and get an assistantship. The end. Sorry.
So I'll keep mine brief since I know we're
Sorry.
No. I'll say I was mostly sequential. After I finished my PhD, I spent 2 years working at ACS actually. So there, it was really wonderful for me because I got to keep all that chemistry knowledge that I built up and that I was working on and the community I developed, and learn more about how to work with ACS members, right? What do you need? How can we provide support for you? So that was a lot of fun for me. And then I came here because I wanted to see the flip side, what happens in the government. So that's what I'll add.
So in short, when you first started on your journey, are any of you where you thought you would be?
You said no.
No. All right. So every day you can make a decision on which way you want to turn. Some days you want to go left, some days you want to go right, some days you want to go straight. All right. It'll change all the time, no matter how old, how young, or how many years you've been teaching. 7 here, just to say. Next slide.
You gotta put there.
Yeah, you can hit. There you go.
What do you compare to what your family think you do? How involved are your family in your work?
That's a great question.
My family didn't understand any of the research that I did in grad school. They were very supportive. But they didn't have any clue what I was doing. So I think honestly, it's a relief now that I'm in politics, because at least my family can say she works on Capitol Hill. People understand what that means. So my family's been very supportive the whole time of my education and then of switching career paths, which I've really appreciated. My folks don't do anything like this. I'm the first PhD in our family. So I think they don't necessarily have concrete experiences that they can help me with, but having their unconditional support has been incredibly useful to me, and I feel very privileged to have had that.
I think my family understands, just like the science of nutrition and are generally supportive of it. I also feel very lucky that they've been really supportive. As far as their involvement, they like to know what they think they should eat, but I try to stay out of it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, so my dad was a professor, and I think that really kind of motivated a lot of my interest in science from a young age. But I think that the one involvement that I think I've been really thankful for over the years is that my parents never really put pressure on me to do one thing or the other from a young age. They were kind of very agnostic as to what I could do in the future. So I think that in that sense, I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of opportunities to explore the things that I really like and care about. And that's really been the real joy, honestly. So.
I think throughout grad school, similarly, my family had no idea what I was doing, which was fine. Sometimes they tried to understand it, sometimes they didn't. We're okay with that. They knew I was studying chemistry, that was pretty much it. Now, kind of like Lila said, being in the government, being in the Senate, it's a little bit clearer to understand from the outside. I think the day-to-day is still a bit murky, but they understand I'm working on climate and energy issues in the office of a senator, and that's a much better understanding compared to grad school. But always, also lucky to have the support of everybody, even if they didn't quite know what I was working on. And similar to what Brandon was saying, I wasn't really pushed in any one way or the other as a kid, and was definitely supported to do whatever I was interested in, which from a very young age was science. And I think it came as a shock to most of my family that I pivoted to something slightly outside of hard science, but they are nonetheless quite supportive.
Yeah, my family likes the one-line summary of what my job is. When I was doing research, that was a bit tricky to explain what my research is, because PhDs are very, very specialized. You know, even within one field, if you're working on solar cells, you're not working on the entire cell, you're working on one layer, one material part of this big, you know, one solar cell to me is big because it's a lot of different materials. And so you'd work on one tiny, tiny piece of it. And explaining that to a family is a little hard, but they knew kind of they knew I was a material scientist. They're always happy to hear like updates. And now working in the Senate, yeah, it's a little bit easier to explain. And I can help translate some of the political news they get and say, nope, that's not how that works, or yep, that's how that works. So that's been helpful, I think.
She said you stole her word. She said helpful right before you said it. All right, so last question.
What advice do you have for students who think science is too hard?
Go. Me too. I went to a performing arts high school. I got really good at playing the bassoon, not very good at science. So when I realized that I was interested in science, it was a rude awakening. I did not know how to study for science. I did real bad in my courses in college. It took me into my senior year to get an A in a chemistry course. So I would say there are some people for whom science comes easily, and that's wonderful, and I'm excited for them, and I'm happy for them, and that was never me. So don't think that I struggled a lot with thinking I was too stupid to understand my own subject. I don't think that's the case. I think you have to look at what you care about, and if you care about learning, look for different opportunities. Find a lot of schools offer tutors, which I definitely used. Changing the way you study. If something's not working, try something new. Please don't be discouraged. I know it's hard. It sucks a lot sometimes when it just doesn't feel like it's coming naturally. But as I like to tell people, like, you too can go to grad school if you want. There is a way. It's just, it might not seem as easy as it does for some people, but you can do it.
The first thing I'd want to say is that there are a lot of different kinds of science. If you want to be really mathematical about it, or really theoretical and into physics, like there's that branch of science. If you want to go out and do field work and collect samples, you can be more in environmental science or more towards like water or geology, and you can be out in the field or, you know, traveling and looking at nature, or you could be in a lab. Like I wanted to be in like a white coat lab kind of environment, working with like chemicals and all different things. So all of those take different skills. And if you think you don't like one type of science, or you don't feel like you're good at it and you're not like happy with it, try a different type of science. There's actually so much. Science is an extremely broad umbrella. So maybe you just haven't found the thing that you like yet. Or if you think you might like it, but it's just feeling really hard, I would say definitely keep at it. The first time I read like a scientific research paper, like an article, when I was a freshman in college, it was like, reading Greek. It was really, really dense and hard to understand. And I was like, how am I ever going to do this? But then over the course of my undergraduate and then graduate careers, I've read thousands of papers and I wrote some. So it's obviously you learn how to do it, and, always just take one step, right? Because if you try to think like how to take the next 100 steps all at once, it can feel overwhelming. But the only thing you really need to do in that moment is take like whatever the step in front of you is. So just try that, see where it goes.
Yeah, I think saying something is too hard is sort of a silly way to phrase it. Like, science might be hard. And when people say, I say, oh, I went to chemistry grad school, and people say, oh, you must be really smart. Like, that's not really, like, that's not what I meant. And that's also not necessarily the case. Like, I worked really hard and I studied really hard and I had really amazing teachers and really great resources. And kind of like Clarissa was saying, it's one step at a time. And it's not necessarily that it was, you know, hard or easy or too hard. Like, yeah, I mean, chemistry is hard. I also think chemistry is hard, and I have a degree in chemistry, and there's still so much that I don't know, but you know, you take advantage of the resources that you can. And I would also say, like, don't underestimate the power of like the internet. Like anything you ever need to know is on the internet. I learn really well by watching videos of things, and I think YouTube is an underutilized resource. Just putting that out there. But I think also, like, if it's something that you want to do and something that you're interested in, it's never too hard that it's insurmountable. And if you find the right mentors, the right teachers, the right resources, you can always, you know, get to your end goal.
I think that, like, I mean, everyone has said this, and I completely agree. I'm a scientist. I think science is hard. There continue to be components of science that I don't understand. I think that one of the kind of funny things is that, like, all of us come into this role that we're currently in, calling ourselves science advisors, but like we get here and we get an issue tossed at us, and like we're just as uninformed about the issue as like almost everyone else. We have to go out and do the research and become educated about it, and it's like a lot of hard work. And I think that one thing that I want to reinforce is that, like, oftentimes in high school, people will tell you that it's just like you need to be really smart to do science. Like, science is a difficult thing. You need to put a lot of work into it. But I think that, like, you don't need to be, I don't want to say you don't need to be smart to do science, but like anyone can be a scientist. Anyone can go into science, and it's, if you have a passion for it, if you care about working hard in it, then you'll be successful. One thing that I wanted to also mention that I think is really important is that asking for help is like always completely okay. And it's something that it took me a really long time to understand, that it's just like your teachers are there to help you out and to help you learn and to help educate you. And I think that no teacher is ever going to be annoyed by you asking questions about something that you don't understand. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think it's really important to ask questions, really important to seek help. And anyone can do science.
I think everyone's kind of, said everything. I agree, finding a mentor, just finding a trusted person that you can ask questions to, and asking as many as you possibly can, is definitely great advice. The only other thing I would add to it is that, so there's the basic science, and for me personally, that's kind of like a little outside of my scope, but I think it's also like, it's a way of like thinking about something and trying to problem solve. So going through the empirical steps to figure out like what might be a plausible answer to a problem. And that can be in basic science or in the social sciences. So it's much broader than, it's quite large, just like Rachel was saying, so that's it.
Thank you. That was our last predetermined question. I am going to scan the room. Does anyone in the room have a question that they wrote down while they were speaking? Going once, twice. All right. Can I get a big hand clap for our speakers one last time? We are really grateful that you guys took the time out the day to come talk with us. If we are going to upload this to our YouTube channel, so if any other classes watch it or have any questions, we'll be sure to send you a link or email with any questions if you want to respond. And then we also hope to have a big community fair at the end of the year, hopefully in around May when it warms up. And we would love to see you guys back just to come show face, meet some of the kids, and see some of the experiments that they've done all year long. All right, so thank you again for attending. Thank you, Mr. Wu, for logging on. All right, give him a clap one more time, y'all, before I shut it down. You guys have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.